Well, a little biblical humor. I just thought of an old joke. There are 3 people in the Bible who didn't have an earthly father. Who are they? Name one. Jesus. Okay, he had an adopted father, but not a biological father. Okay, who else? Adam. Who's the third one? Joshua. Why? Because his dad's name is Nun. Joshua, son of Nun. Okay, that's it. All right. Okay, let's look at the lay of the land. I'm glad you like that one, Helen. The Wall Street Journal and NBC News, they've been polling Americans about values for the last 21 years. The most recent survey, it's troubling for the future generations if you're actually in favor of future generations. The general question asked is this: what values do you find very important? Now, here are the results in 3 of those categories. For the youngest generation, 18 to 38-year-olds, patriotism. 42% of young people said patriotism was very important to them. 39 to 54-year-olds, 65%. 55 to 91-year-olds, 79%. Religion, 30% of young people, 18 to 38, said that religion is very important to them. 52%, age 39 through 54. Age 55 through 91, 67%. Now, how about having children, having kids? Okay, that's a good thing, right? This is what I'm saying about the future generations, if we're even going to have future generations. Because 18 to 38-year-olds said having kids is very important, 32%. 44% of those 39 to 54 said this, that having children is extremely important. And of course, 55 to 91%, or 55 to 91 years old, 54%. So, if you look at this chart, it's kind of troubling, really, isn't it? I mean, basically, if you're my age or older, we're not going to be around when the chicken comes back to roost, right? But it's troubling. This is very troubling. See, in this same survey, the young people, this generation of 18 to 38-year-olds, said that their number one goal in life is self-fulfillment. Now that means rather than fulfilling one's duty to God, one's duty to your family, one's duty to your neighbor, self-fulfillment. How did we get here? That's the question for this morning. Dallas Willard calls this the disappearance of moral knowledge. And in fact, this is the title of his very last book. He had an unfinished manuscript that was finished by a couple of his students. And in this book, it was Dallas's final message to the world in which he lived, in particular, as a university professor. Dallas's 4 key questions are these. What is reality? Who is well off or blessed? Who is a truly good person? How does one become a truly good person? Dallas said this, I quote, "There is no major in the university system that requires any course of study or even a class where these questions must be answered. These are the most important questions in life to be answered." So what does the university teach about the meaning and purpose of life, and what is important? Well, what's being taught to our children from kindergarten all the way through the university, from almost all of the media and social media, in particular in the last 40 years, what's being taught is this. Well, actually, it's these. There's 3 viewpoints. First, relativism. Relativism says there is no such thing as right or wrong. This is all relative to the culture. There is no absolute truth. Nobody teaches truth in the university. There is no absolute truth, except one teaching. The teaching, there is no absolute truth. That's absolutely true. It's kind of weird, isn't it? Self-fulfilling. With relativism, so-called tolerance or don't judge becomes the goal of life. In my day, it was, I'm okay, you're okay. Today, you'll hear this phrase, you be you. Okay? Unless, of course, I don't like you or your ideas. This leads to the second viewpoint, which is the exact opposite of relativism, ideology. This is the main viewpoint of our school campuses for all grade levels today. This is the main viewpoint of our media, our social media, our politics, our legal system, even our corporate world. Ideologies are simplistic ideas disguised as science or philosophy that purport to explain the complexity of the world and offer remedies that will perfect it. Views on race, gender, sexuality, climate change, and such define us. They become our religion. Ideologues are people who pretend they know how to make the world a better place because they are better people than you and me. Ideologues don't engage in rational thinking and debate. It's not necessary. They are right. Any other viewpoint is wrong. Ideologues tend to engage in thought control. What is thought control? It's as if they're saying this, I want to be in charge of what is acceptable thinking. Or, I won't refute your viewpoint. No. I'll just smear you instead. I won't debate you. I will protest you. I will shut you down and I will censor you so no one can ever hear your viewpoint. I don't simply disagree with you. I hold you in contempt. You are evil. That is ideology. The third viewpoint is the strangest one of all, nihilism. Nihilism just simply means nothing matters. Everything is irrelevant. I'm hearing in the back of my mind, nothing really matters. Everyone can see. Okay, never mind. All right. Jordan Peterson says this to people who are nihilists. He says, talking yourself into irrelevance is not a profound critique of being. It's a cheap trick of the rational mind. So there you have it. The three main viewpoints of the world we live in, the main teachings that are being handed down to your children and your grandchildren right now in schools across this country. They are being indoctrinated with these teachings every single day. And it's all based on lies. All of it is lies. So what do? Well, one thing we know is the source of all these wayward viewpoints is really way more about feeling than it is about thinking. What makes me feel good? What makes me look good to the dominant culture? That's of utmost importance. But as we learned in our summer study of the Proverbs, right thinking, not feelings, is what we need. Wisdom, not thought control. This is what we're going to be doing for the next 12 weeks. We're going to study the brain and the Bible. We're going to use the wisdom of the Bible with insights from Jordan Peterson's world #1 best-selling nonfiction book, 12 Rules for Life. And we will learn a better way. I'm collaborating on this sermon series with my very close friend, Pastor David Householder, from the Well at Surf City, That's his church down in Huntington Beach. So he's preaching at this same exact time. We're not doing the same identical sermons, but a lot of what we'll have, we cross-fertilized. And it's kind of exciting. We're really looking forward to that. In fact, we have a website, brainandbible.com. We're going to see if we can get a dialogue going about some of these themes. Before we begin today, let's realize there's one rule that's the end all of all the other rules. This is going to be our ongoing theme, and here it is. You must take responsibility for your own life, period. Okay? If you don't remember anything else, that's going to be the theme. You must take responsibility for your own life, period. Or the Bible says it this way, Galatians chapter 6, verse 5, for each person will bear his own load. All right, everybody ready? All right, here we go. The 12 rules. Rule number 1, stand up straight with your shoulders back. Let me tell you a brief story. There was a giant from Philistia on the coast of Israel, and he terrorized all the land. The Israelites were on the other side of a valley, and they were up in the hills looking down, and that giant would come out every morning and challenge anyone to come down and fight him one-on-one. Goliath is a great bully. He's a classic predator who looks for weakness in other people in order to take advantage of them. And sure enough, not one of the soldiers from Israel's camp will go. The Israelites cower and they hide from this gigantic warrior except for one, a poised and confident young man, not a soldier, but a shepherd. He looks up and he tells his king, I will fight this great predator. The king says, you're too weak and too small. The young man says, no, I have faced down bullies before. I've killed lions who were trying to kill my sheep. I've killed bears. I will use a sling and hit him with a stone. Now, a sling, not a slingshot, a sling is a powerful weapon in the hands of a slinger. In fact, in those ancient armies, they had whole divisions of slingers. They would use their slings and let go, and the rocks would go. I found out that the sling speed is so fast that that rock has the impact of a .45 caliber bullet. So the young man, David, he goes down the mountain to face the giant Goliath. And Goliath sees that David is young, but he's tall, healthy, and handsome. David stands up straight, and he looks at Goliath. He looks him right in the eyes, and he says, I quote from 1 Samuel chapter 17, you come against me with sword and spear and javelin, but I come against you in the name of the Lord Almighty, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied. This day the Lord will deliver you into my hands, and I'll strike you down and cut off your head. This very day I will give the carcasses of the Philistine army to the birds and to the wild animals, and the whole world will know that there is a God in Israel. All those gathered here will not know that it is not by sword or spear that the Lord saves, for the battle is the Lord's, and he will give all of you into our hands. As the Philistine moved closer to attack David, David ran quickly toward the battle line to meet him. Reaching into his bag and taking out a stone, he slung it, and he struck, boom, Goliath right in the forehead. And Goliath fell down, face down on the ground. So David triumphed over the Philistine with a sling and a stone. Without a sword in his hand, he struck down the Philistine and killed him. Then David ran, and he stood over him, and he took hold of the Philistine's sword out of his sheath, and then he killed him, made sure he was dead, and then he cut off his head with the sword. Oh, I love swords. Oh. So that's it. David refuses to be the victim for the predator Goliath. The giant is no match for David. Competent and confident, David is fighting for the Lord. Now, let me tell you another story. This story is about lobsters. Yeah, those weird-looking, extremely delicious lobsters. I'm going to tell you about lobsters. Lobsters need shelter. You see, their shells molt frequently, and then they're exposed and vulnerable. And so what they do is they stay in rocks to protect themselves. The trouble is there's not enough shelter in the sea for all the lobsters. So they fight for the space. And after they're going at it, clawing away and wrestling, one of the lobsters gets pinned, and the other lobster is the victor. When a lobster loses a fight, the lobster scrunches down and looks smaller. A defeated lobster will not fight again. Isn't that wild? Will not fight again. The winning lobster stands up straight and makes himself as big as possible, like this, okay? It's kind of like singing this morning, I was praising the Lord like this. No wonder. It felt good. I felt like a victorious lobster, you see? But the winner, he flexes and he looks bigger. And you know what? The lobsters who win, they generally always win. They're more likely to win again after a victory. Now, here's what happens to the lobster. The lobster's brain secretes a chemical, and it's the same identical chemical as we use in antidepressants. It's called serotonin. Serotonin calms us, reduces anxiety, and gives a sense of well-being. The winning lobster gets doses of serotonin as he stretches out and stands up straight. That's wild. In other words, stretched out lobsters rule. They do. Now, another fascinating fact from biologists. They measure the actual changes in the circuitry of a defeated lobster's brain. And you know what they discovered? They discovered that the defeated lobster's brain rewired itself after. Literally changed its structure. The defeated lobster actually remains physically defeated for the rest of his life because his brain recalibrated in defeat. They will not fight again. Isn't that interesting? However, these biologists are clever, so what they did is they gave antidepressants to the defeated lobsters. I'm serious. They gave them serotonin. Guess what happened? The lobsters stood up straight and stretched, and they fought again. Now, you can call this whole lobster domination like the one who's big and who stands up straight, puts his lobster shoulders back. You can call that a dominance hierarchy. We hear about dominance hierarchies once in a while, but this is the true dominance hierarchy. You see, lobsters have had a hierarchy of dominance based on competence. Isn't that interesting? Of course, because that's how we're created. Hierarchies are based on competence, at least for lobsters who've been around for 350 million years. So all of a sudden, you hear things like, well, there's a hierarchy of a male hierarchy and, a paternal society. And lobsters have been around for 350 million years, and they've got a hierarchy of competence. And so do other animals from that point on. And actually, lobsters are older than trees. So that's how long. So it's not a patristic, patriarchal society dominating and all that. Hello, older than trees, the competent win. Competence and confidence, that's the ticket. Even more fascinating, neurobiologists tell us that we have a similar brain system as the lobsters. Oh, our brains are much bigger, don't get me wrong. But a similar system, seriously. With humans, serotonin is released when we stand up straight with our shoulders back. Isn't that fascinating? It's released. So, all of you, go like this. Sit up straight with your shoulders back. Take a couple of deep breaths. All right. Thank God for free drugs. You want another dose? Ready? I feel more relieved and calm, and actually, you do. See, with good posture, serotonin flows freely. But when we are bullied, when we're a victim of predators and predatory behavior, even from way back in our earliest childhood memories, when we are bullied by others, our serotonin levels drop severely. This is why we have something called depression. We get depressed. The serotonin levels are gone. But the trouble is, not only do we get depressed when we're being bullied, but watch the way that someone responds. They hunch over, and there's a sadness. No serotonin. These bullying experiences will likely continue for the rest of your life. If this hasn't been addressed, the rest of your life. Here's why. It's not just a psychological problem. Bullying experiences actually rewire the brain. See, our brains are plastic. In other words, they have plasticity. There are always opportunities to, start new pathways and all that. Well, bullying will literally change the physical makeup of a brain. So it's not just a psychological problem, it's a physical problem. And when you appear weak and vulnerable, predatory bullies, they see this as a victim to be exploited. And predators know exactly who to go after. The best way possible for them to do that is body language. So if you're being bullied by a predator, what can you do? Consider David. Realize that you are the son or the daughter of the king of the universe. Your dad is capable of whooping anyone. And the battle is his. See, like David, we realize the real dominance hierarchy is not about power. This is where the ideologues today have it totally wrong. It's not about power. It's about confidence, which comes out of competence. Success and winning in a dominant hierarchy is about this competency. And competency breeds this confidence. And the more competent, the more confident. The more competent, the more confident. It's about facing danger with full vulnerability. Not hiding from it, but walking straight into it sometimes. It's about courage. And competent people accept their vulnerability. And they have the courage to face down their predators. In fact, look at this. As I am standing up straight with my shoulders back, what's the most vulnerable area of my body? Right here. And this is the most vulnerable area to get killed. Lobsters do the same thing. They expose themselves like this on purpose, their vulnerable soft spots, saying, "You want some of this? Totally unprotecting themselves. Not any hunch over, trying to keep you away from their soft organs and all that. No. Facing down their predators. We Christians, we know about courage lived out in vulnerability. We worship the most powerful person who ever lived and walked on earth. But he didn't use his power to win. He took on the cross. The cross is the greatest sign of vulnerability and weakness there is ever made. Helpless and exposed to the whole world. But it is on this cross, the sign of ultimate bullying, where the world's biggest predator at the time, the Roman Empire, joined the predators and bullies of sin and of death and of the devil himself. And he wins. Jesus courageously defeated it all. And we notice in our own lives, most of us admire the most courageous people, don't we? Those are the people we admire. Those who are competent and confident, they lead. Well, that shouldn't be a surprise. Those who voluntarily take on responsibility for their own lives, those who refuse to be a victim, those who face down the predators and protect others along the way from these bullies and predators, that's the guy, that's the gal that I'm willing to follow. What about you? The courageous, the competent, and the confident. And God even designs our physical bodies to do just that. Stand up straight with your shoulders back. Pull open. Pull yourself up, open up. Even predator bullies will shrink back when they see this in you. Think about it. I mean, you've all seen people who are in martial arts, right? A lot of the champions, you'll notice, they're not tall. They're slight. They're not heavy. In fact, they're frequently short and slight. Tiny little guys, Interesting. They walk into a room. What do you see? They always walk erect and relaxed, looking straight ahead, staring you in the eye, saying, I may be 100 pounds less than you, but I'm going to kick your butt. Yeah. Here's my favorite martial artist, Bruce Lee. Kind of brought that whole scene into America in some ways. Bruce Lee was 5 feet 7.5, and he weighed 140 pounds. I'll tell you what, I don't want to go against Bruce Lee. Nah. In fact, my favorite fight was from Enter the Dragon. That's like his most popular film. My favorite fight of all times. Ready? He fought Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. How many of you saw that film? Everybody should see that film. Just for the sake of watching Kareem. Kareem was pretty tough, man. So, the only thing about the movie, that scene is, because Kareem, he still played ball, right, at the time. And so it's kind of like they were doing the kicks and the hits, and they were about this far distance from hitting. And they had all those, the background noise, like, so here's Bruce Lee's hand, here's Kareem's head. And I'm like, wait a minute, man. You got to get it closer than that. Anyway. So we're going to accept this. We're going to straighten up. We're going to accept that we are responsible for our own lives. Slouching makes you appear less responsible and less competent. Lower your posture, lower your influence. So attend carefully to your posture. Quit drooping and hunching around. Speak your mind. Put your desires forward as if you had the right to them, at least the same right as others. Walk tall and gaze forthrightly ahead. Dare to be dangerous. Encourage the serotonin to flow plentifully through the neural pathways desperate for its calming effect. People, including yourself, will start to assume that you are competent and able. At least, they will not immediately conclude the reverse. Thus emboldened, you will embark on the voyage of your life. Let your light shine, so to speak, on the heavenly hill and pursue your rightful destiny. Then the meaning of your life may be sufficient to keep the corrupting influence of mortal despair at bay. Then you may be able to accept the terrible burden of the world and find joy. Look for your inspiration in the victorious lobster, with its 350 years, or 350 million years, thank you, of practical wisdom. Stand up straight with your shoulders back.